Hi, I'm Graham Avery. Welcome back to the Buzzbee channel. Today we're going to be talking about a product which we use in multiple different ways you might find useful as well. This is not just simply a tank, but it's a 70-litre double wall boiler. And what that effectively means that we can use in various different ways without actually having the product we put inside it in contact with it directly with an element. Because it's a double wall boiler, the actual heating element is built underneath the actual main tank, and then the container or the double wall is filled with a liquid, in this case water. That water then moves around the actual internal part of the drum and heat the internal surfaces. Therefore, the surfaces are quite evenly heated. That's useful for such things as beeswax, and that is certainly one of the purposes of here, where you can put beeswax in, you put water in the part of the way. And then there's a tap on the side here, which we'll go through later, which allows you to then siphon it out at a higher level. The other purpose it's used for is decrystallizing of honey. If you've got honey that you want to try and actually bottle, and it's a big block of crystallized honey, you obviously want to get that to a liquid format. This can certainly help you with that as well. And the third purpose where this is useful is actually making sugar syrup. One of the reasons why we like to use a big tank like this is because this can actually heat up to around about 100 degrees Celsius and allows us to heat up the water to much higher temperature if we have to, thus allowing us to dissolve more sugar in that sugar syrup itself. So if we want a more concentrated sugar syrup, then certainly one way we do it is using this method as well. But obviously it allows us to do much bigger quantities rather than just a small pot on the actual stove. But this allows obviously 70 litres worth. So that gives us a bit of a semi-commercial sort of quantity if we want it to be that way. So effectively three things is go through. One is the melting of beeswax. Second is actually allow us to decrystallize honey. And the third is making sugar syrup. But the purpose of this video for today is show you how this is assembled in the correct format and then hopefully use it. Before we get going in assembly, just a thought to show you the various different components that come in as a kit. Obviously, the main part is the main drum itself. It is a fully stainless steel inside and out. The actual components obviously have screw threads, so this allows you to join the various different components, which we'll go in a little later. In addition to that, you have the full control unit, which shows you the power light being power on, obviously when it's in operation, and then a dial allows you to move this up and down to change the various temperature on a thermostat basis. So it's a very simple unit to use, and obviously just shows you when it indicates on, which gives you the temperature on or off. On the right hand side here we have the actual honey tap at the very bottom. If we go around a little bit further, we have an inlet there. This part goes in there, which is effectively a level indicator of the water that sits up top here. Going down around a bit further, going a little higher now, we saw maybe touched on a little bit earlier, is the wax outlet as well, because the idea is water will fall underneath this point, be wastewater, and then the wax which sits on top of the water will come out of there. So versatile little unit, and there's the second handle. Inside the physical drum is totally sealed, fully stainless steel, and it has this metal or very firm edge, a very soft round edge on it, right way around. This allows for the silicon seal inside the actual lid to sit nice and firmly, and therefore when you apply it on, you've got a nice tight seal. But not only that, it actually has a bit of insulation, so therefore allows heat to escape because that silicon seal sits in place. The actual lid itself is actually quite thick. It's around about maybe about 4 inches, 3 inches thick, and that is actually insulated to again allow a bit of insulation. So the underneath is actually flat on the lid, but then it's risen over the top with a nice firm handle for grip. Now inside this main heating element or heating drum is another internal drum that goes inside, and this acts effectively as a filter. Again, it's totally stainless steel. It has 2 handles on either side, allows you to easily grip it and pull outwards from the inside, but it's perforated with holes on the inside of the actual walls and in the actual floor itself. So this would sit pretty much on that surface on the bottom. It can be filled up with water. In this case, I would recommend be something like if you're going to clean your beeswax, you put it in, you put the water in obviously, and then the beeswax sits on top of this. Any sort of gunk will then fall down to the surface down the bottom here, and then at the end, which is finished, you lift upwards on both sides, and you can remove it very easily. So it's a great accessory. Now you most probably wouldn't use this if you were using it with the honey. Honey can be used straight without that, but it has an option when you want to use it when you want to filter something out. It's certainly a great addition to that unit. As part of the tank, there are various different components that are added to be bolted onto the tank. These are all done by a screw thread, 20 millimeters or 15 millimeters, depends on which component you talk about. If we work from the left-hand side, so this is a part which is the nozzle, and this can be used on either side. These are for the bottom one is used for the honey outlet. That one is the wax outlet. These are both 20 millimeter on both sides, and that allows then this to be added on. So if you, for example, are having honey, you could screw that on. Then you obviously the honey can be taken out. Again, it can be used for the beeswax. So you can swap those two around if you wanted to. Depends on what the purpose is going to be. Down here in the center is a component that's screwed in towards the bottom, and this is used to actually indicate how much water is in that double boil. You do not want to run it absolutely dry. So there's a little red ball in there that moves up and down. This is a major step up from the previous model where that was just simply a glass tube. But this is now a protected glass tube, but also got an aluminium casing around it and nice firm top. So that was then supported by this bracket over here. So that nice firm, so that sits inside there like this. And it gives a bit of security. So it acts as a bit of a guard around that. Okay. So simply an indicator to show you how much water is in that double boiler. If you look to the right hand side, this is again another tap. This is used in conjunction with the top one. So this is more for the double boiler part. So we have the double boiler outlet. In this case, allows the water to stay in. When you want to get rid of it, you just open that up and out it comes. This is the top where it allows the water to go in the actual physical double boiler area. So there's an inlet there. That's the outlet. Now they all come with a plumber's tape to keep it nice and sealed. So that comes with it automatically. You do not have to get that as well. So overall the components, so this on the right hand side is the double boiler part, and then in the indicator, and then this is more to do with the physical functionality of the honey / beeswax outlet size. One thing we like to add, this is a 240 volt single phase unit. So anybody in a standard house should be able to run this. There's no problem at all. So just simply place it on a flat surface, something like a table, makes it much easier to use. Plug it in, and you should be away. For the first stage of the process, we're going to concentrate on the actual double boiler part, making where the inlet goes in, the water inlet goes in, and the water outlet goes. So this is the part down here. For the water inlet valve, we're going to actually use this L-shaped connector, and this is going to point upwards. These are 50mm metric incisors. What we're going to do is actually apply a little bit of the plumber's tape. Now, when you're applying the plumber's tape, there's a way it actually goes on. Because you're turning in a clockwise motion, if you put the actual that way, you'll find it'll start unraveling the actual plumber's tape. So you want to do this in the opposite way. So it goes around. And I find you need about at least 5 to 10. It depends on the thickness and how much space is there. So I'm just going to do this a few loops around. It is extremely thin. And you want a nice tight seal, so obviously there's no leaks there. Now this is actually supplied in the kit, so you don't necessarily have to go and get any more. Just put it a bit tight that way. Now we're going to put the connector on, which is that point. Again, turning the clockwise motion this time. You should start feeling some resistance in that thread. Okay, that's part there. So that one's done. We're going to have it sticking upwards, and there's going to be explain why we're doing that in another video. But the idea is the water will go in here, and at the bottom, obviously, the water comes out. With the water outlet, there's going to be quite a bit of pressure coming out here, and it can be quite warm. This can actually heat up to around 100 degrees Celsius, so we don't want any sort of hot water coming out of there at all. So we want to make sure that this is very well sealed. So I'm doing a little extra, and make sure it's extra a little bit tighter. Good luck. Okay. It's ready. That's plumber's tape. And what we're going to be attaching on is this ball valve. Again, it's a 15mm connector metric. This is in currently the closed state. That's the open. So we're just going to leave it in a closed state at the moment. Because the last thing we want to do is actually open it, and then water puts in. It also helps us to leverage the turn around easier. And as I turn it, you should be able to feel some resistance as I'm turning it. If it's a bit too loose, then you may not have put enough on. Maybe just take it off again and put a few more loops of the plumber's tape. While we're working on the double boiler part, we're going to actually attach on the water level. And there's a little ball that moves up and down. You might see it moving up and down. That ball works based on sits on top of level of the water. So they'll sit in this position over here. This is the little hole. And that tells us exactly how much water is in there. Now the point is you never ever want to run the boiler empty. It'll burn out the element. You don't want that to happen. So we're going to attach it on this part, which is effectively an L-shaped bracket. And then this will sit in vertically. So again, we'll need a little bit of the plumber's tape. In this case, what I want to do is put it around this way. A little bit trickier because it is narrower. Not too much. What I tend to find is I tend to push it together a little bit more, not too much. You don't want to crush it up, then rotate it around accordingly. Now, one thing you would notice as well, inside there is just a little bit more. There we go. Okay. What I've actually put in beforehand, there is a nylon, effectively a wash inside, and followed by a stainless steel wash on top of that. So make sure these two go on before we put this on, and that gives it the compression. So as it compresses this, it applies a bit of seal there. So I'm going to put that in together now. Turn again clockwise, then I can just feel the resistance straight away as I'm turning around. And that's not too bad. We can do a little bit more. There you go. Beautiful. That's in that position. Now, this will simply go through the top of the actual position that way. Now I'm going to put it through and attach it now. It goes through the actual top, through the protector. Nice and tight. Making sure that this is sticking out so we can actually see the window. You can put it either side if you want, it's up to you. There we are, that's ready. The next step is actually try and set up the main honey outlet or the liquid that comes out. This is the honey outlet, so this is right at the very bottom of the tank. Again, we're going to apply some plumber's tape, go around, another 10. It's looking pretty good, I think. Get the last bit on there. We're now going to be adding on this 20mm ball valve. It's 20mm on both sides. And make sure when you put it on that you are putting the right way around, because if you put the wrong way around, for example that way, and I want to close it or open the valve, I'm going to hit that point. And make sure you get the right way around, that's opening the correct way. That applies with all the others as well. So I'm going to put it around. I think that's about right. A little bit more, I think. There we are, that's the last one. It's quite nice and tight there. So that's the open position, that's the closed. Right, one more to go. The last connector we're going to add is similar to the honey, is again another 20mm valve. This is slightly higher up than the actual honey position. This allows obviously to put water below it, which then the actual wax floats to the top and that comes out this high point. The same routine again. I'd rather do too many than too little. There you go. Okay. Now again, making sure it's the right way. So go with leverage. About there. Okay. That's looking good. Right, that's complete. One little piece to go more, and then we're done. The last piece to be connected now is this L-shape effectively adapter. It's a 20mm connector, so that can be put onto either the wax outlet or the honey outlet. It's up to you. And in this case, we're going to put onto the wax outlet. Again, same principle applies. Putting some of the plumber's tape over. Go round, and this is the final piece in the puzzle. And then connect it. Just hold it so it doesn't rotate above this part. I might leave that going downwards now so that it can go straight into a bucket. What I like about the design is they've left underneath totally clear, so it can fall straight into a bucket or container, whatever you would like the actual beeswax to go into. And then obviously that nozzle goes straight down. Your last thing would come out at an angle and splashing. So this helps guide the actual hot molten liquid downwards and help prevent and reduce the amount of splashing. So hopefully these steps that you've seen is actually going to help you how this is assembled. So you have 50mm connectors. They are predominantly for the water connectors, which are these two parts here, which is the inlet, water inlet and outlet. You also have the 20mm connectors. They are for the valves for the outlet for the honey and the wax. You then obviously have the little connector down here on the side, which is the gauge. Make sure that's connected as well, and then behind this protector. So that's just to make sure it stands vertically and protected the point of view. But the actual connectors to use it is very, very straightforward. Remember, this is a single phase 240 volt power supply, but do not turn it on or use it until you actually put water in. So we recommend that whatever you're going to put in, make sure that the water level on the inside of the actual double boiler is greater or higher than that. So if let's say the wax is that level or the honey is that level, you want to make sure you go a little bit higher with the water inside that. Remember, you're going to have water evaporating all the time, so you'll most probably likely have to keep topping up from the water inlet as well. So again, keep an eye with the actual level gauge of where that sits as well. But it's straightforward. At the end of the time, when you put packing away for, let's say, not using it for a few months or time period, I recommend taking the water out. Do not leave it stand still. So take that out. Make sure that it goes into some form of container or some form of pipe system outside here. There is another video we're going to be producing using this as well for, I think, sugar syrup is the first one on our list. So please have a look at that as well. But if you find this video useful, I really would appreciate a thumbs up, please. And if you want to see more videos of these type of products we're bringing out that may be of interest to you, please subscribe as well. But anyway, happy beekeeping, everybody.